You're watching the ANEC Sports Podcast on YouTube. The show starts right now. Welcome to episode 36 of the ANEC Sports Podcast. My name is Sam Frick. I'm the founder and editor at Around the Northeast Corner, now known as ANEC Sports, covering schools across Northeast Indiana and Elkhart County. That includes covering schools all across Marion, Indiana, and Grant County. And so we're looking at 65 schools getting ready for the start of the year. And now we are fully into the fall sports season with a new addition as well to our ANEC Sports Podcast. In an effort to provide some flexibility to our show and whatnot, we have decided to move some of the bigger sports on a different segment of the show. So instead of being on the regular ANEC Sports Podcast and whatnot, we put more of in-depth discussions at a later post. So in a situation like this, for instance, we want to put more effort into talking about soccer, talking about volleyball, highlighting some few things here and there in golf and cross country and whatnot as we get things rolling. So without further ado, let's get into, yes, that's right, you missed this already, the talk around the corner. And with the talk around the corner, we are going to first talk about girls golf here. And I want to kind of highlight some of the teams so far in this girls golf season. Northridge has had a great season so far, led by a great season from Alex Reshley of the Northridge Raiders, and she won yet another invitational over the weekend. I believe it was at New Haven, where she scored a 18-hole score of 68 as Northridge Raiders win another invitational on the season. You got Taylor Larkins of Carroll. She scored a 70 at New Haven over the weekend. She has been setting records left and right over her 4 years at Carroll High School, whether if it's her individually or with the team as a whole. Carroll is one of the top teams to watch throughout the course of the season. Taylor Larkins has been on that all year long for the Carroll Chargers. And then even another girl that maybe doesn't get quite the same attention, Natalie Winter, having another great season for the Carroll Chargers as well. So Carroll having a great season on the golf course. East Noble, really good season for them as a team. They, I believe, are still undefeated in the Northeast states, led by the talented junior Lily Oburn. She placed third at New Haven and also just recently last week set a new personal record of 32 at a 9-hole score as they defeated Huntington North 169-219. Sophie Richmond Northwood, that's another golfer having a great individual season as well. Northwood having a solid year in girls golf as well. So, and then on top of all this, you got DeKalb having a nice all-around year from Jaden Tompkins, Paige Williams, Ellington Sparkman. I believe Grace Feaster. I want to make sure I don't get the Feaster names confused. I believe it's Grace Feaster that's back this year. The other graduated last year. So DeKalb still very much DeKalb in girls golf, and we'll be excited to see how the Northeast state unfolds between East Noble and potentially DeKalb. Norwell cannot be ruled out either, with Savannah Zimmerman and Ellie Gadden of Norwell. Let's Bremer have a nice individual year for the Leah Lions as well. Northeast Corner Conference, very wide open right now in the NECC landscape. Fairfield's usually right up there. You got Angola, usually competitive in the NECC. And then Fremont in recent years has won the Northeast Corner Conference as well. So the NECC is very wide open. ACAC is wide open right now. You know, you got London Smith of Adams Central. You got the Schwartz girl at Bluffton, which for some reason I'm blanking at this moment. I apologize. I should know this, but Bluffton won the ACAC last season. If you recall, won their first ever sectional championship. They won the ACAC meet, not the regular season, but I think the only really matters the ACAC meet. Whatever. Either way, it's been a great run right now for the Bluffton Tigers. And, you look at this Bluffton squad, Adams Central's right there. Southern Wells actually did quite well last year in the ACAC race as well. South Adams has had some solid golf over the years as well. So ACAC wide open. The SAC typically is very competitive with the likes of Concordia. Concordia is usually right up there in the SAC. So things are really heating up right now for the SAC there. Also with cross country, we got some individuals we want to highlight here so far and some names to watch. If you haven't heard already, Mallory Weller of Concordia, you might have heard of that name from last year, particularly in the track and field landscape, winning a state championship in track and field. She's also really good at cross country. She had a very successful weekend at Huntington North. So that's a name to watch there for Concordia. Carroll always has good cross country. West Noble did very well at the Elkhart Christian. I always forget the name of the event that they're talking about. Hold on. It was the Elkhart Christian Holcomb Karam. Apologies if I butchered the name there. As Carla Dominguez and Trinity Parson led the way for West Noble to win that event there. Roland Norris of Leo, you know what to expect with Roland Norris being on that mitts every year. You got Oak Hill with Byron Travis having a nice performance at the Jeremy Wright Invitational over the weekend. Patty Wids of Busco leading Busco to a Lakeland Invitational Championship as well. Huntington North with Alex Friesen. You know she's going to be in that midst this year for the Huntington North Vikings. Plenty of names to talk about as we are very much into the cross-country season. And on the boys' side, Evan Correll, great name for the Fairfield Falcons. Very consistent. Probably been one of the top performers the last couple years in the NECC area. Brian Garcia of New Haven just won the Meister Family Memorial Run at Monroe Central over the weekend at a time of 16:04. New Haven's had a really good run across country and track and field as of late. Brian Garcia has been a huge part of that for the New Haven Bulldogs. Memphis Martin of Lakeland, really good cross-country runner for the Lakeland Lakers, as well as another kid just a little bit to the west of Lakeland. You might have heard of his name before, Noah Bontrader of the Westview Warriors. He had a really nice run over the weekend at Elkhart Christian, and Noah Bontrader is a name to watch. He went to state last year in cross-country, broke some records in states, made it to state in track and field last year, won a couple of state championships in track and field. And Andrew Strong of Eastside's another one. You got Carroll once again in the midst, as well as Sam Sweet in that midst as well. Xander Reitnauer of Lakewood Park. He is back once again for the Lakewood Park Christian Panthers, one of the top cross-country runners in all of Indiana. And lest I forget, we cannot forget the Warsaw Tigers in the midst here, especially with Samantha and Danny Rastrelli, two really good runners, not only in cross-country, but also in track and field for the Warsaw Tigers. Just a couple of weeks ago, they had a dominant performance, and I believe that was at Warsaw's very own invitational, where both Danny and Samantha finished first and second, respectively. It was Samantha at 20:17.8, 20 minutes, 17 minutes, and 8 seconds. 20 minutes, 17.8 seconds, And then Danny had a time of 20 minutes and 41.3 seconds for the Warsaw Tigers. I hope I didn't confuse anybody there. But anyway, really moving full speed ahead for cross country. Getting things underway on that season. Then we want to get to soccer. We got boys and girls soccer right now in the swing of things right now. Right now, it's been a really good start for Blackhawk Christian in both boys and girls soccer. You got Lena Leidinger of the girls side having a really nice start to the season for the Blackhawk Christian Braves. McKenna Grorud, their goalkeeper, is being nominated right now as one of the finalists for Performer of the Week. Corey Brown of Concordia had a 4-goal performance against Northside over the weekend. Landry Harbin of Oak Hill, she's been hotter than a firecracker down in Converse, Indiana in Grant County. She had 4 goals this week, including a hat trick against Kokomo, and 4 goals, I should say, additionally, against Marion, and then the PK goal against East. Audrey Johnson, what a week it was for Homestead and Audrey Johnson as the Spartans destroyed the Leo Lions 11-0. They had a 2-goal performance and a 3-0 win over Evansville Memorial. So Homestead looking very sharp as well as they look to make a run in the state tournament. Once again, you got Northridge having a nice run, including a hat trick from Edelyn Munoz in an 8-0 win over East Noble. East Noble having a nice run as well, with Sammy Nutter scoring a hat trick against Lakeland in a 4-1 victory. Allison Reshendez with 5 goals against Wawasee in a 6-3 win. And then Marilyn Yoder with a 4-goal performance, a 9-0 win over Wawasee after a slow start against Leo. Westview starting to turn things around a little bit and getting back in the swing of things for a younger, but still pretty talented Westview Warriors squad under Jesse Ward. So things to keep an eye on for the NECC. Obviously, with the conference, you got to mention Angola. They're usually one of the top teams in the conference for girls soccer. Central Noble, you know what to expect with CM with their defense and their goaltending. Central Noble is going to be kind of in that midst as well in the NECC. The thing with Central Noble is, can they score enough goals? That is going to be a question mark for the Cougars. Obviously, the favorites will be Westview because even though they are younger, they have a lot of talent in a conference like NECC. Not the greatest soccer conference out there. Westview, the talent is still through the roof right now for the Westview Warriors. In the Northeast State, Belmont, you know what to expect with the Belmont Braves. They're off to a slow start once again, but that is to be expected with the schedule they play. They played some really difficult teams, particularly like a team like Homestead, for instance, which they've had their trouble getting past Homestead in recent years. They're 0-3 to start the year, but guess what? I believe they also started the season 0-3 last year as well. They lost to Homestead 2-0, South Bend Adams 2-1, and as well as a 2-1 loss to Mishawaka Marion. Those last two teams coming in at the either at St. Joe's Invitation or at Newton Park against Mishawaka Marion. But they got a big matchup coming up on Tuesday against Bishop Dwayner, and then they begin conference play on Thursday against Columbia City. No Addison Baxter this time around. She graduated. She's down in Indy at Butler University, but Columbia City still looking pretty solid. Their defense is pretty good. That's something to be expected with Columbia City. But the goal scoring has been at a premium a little bit. They're only scoring 6 goals through 3 games, so they're averaging about 2 goals per game. Their defense, however, they have not given up a single goal yet against Wawasee, Manchester, and they had a scoreless draw with Northwood. Big test coming up on Wednesday against Northrop at home, and then they'll be at Belmont Thursday before they host their rivals Norwell on Saturday. Norwell's another team to keep an eye on. Grace Mann, you know what to expect with Norwell. With Grace Mann, she is one of the top goal scorers that the NEA has ever seen. The key thing with Norwell is, can they get enough support behind Grace Mann? They have not been able to score a lot of goals so far. Now, keep in mind, they are playing Concordia and Blackhawk Christian. They were playing those two teams, and those are two really solid soccer programs. So it's not like Norwell is that far off here, but goal scoring is going to have to step up in the coming games ahead if they want to compete for a Northeast State championship. Big game coming up on Wednesday against the Leo Lions, a team that's off to a 1-2 start, much like what we've seen with, as much as we mentioned the other teams. Leo's also been dealt with a very difficult schedule. They played Westview in a 3-0 win, and then they got outscored 19-0 against Homestead and Carroll, two of the top soccer programs in the entire 260. And so that is to be expected when you play against two really good programs like Homestead and Carroll. Both undefeated to start the season, if I recall. Carroll 2-0-1, Homestead 4-0. Homestead has been a red hot to begin the season, including from their, especially on defense, but even on offense, Audrey Johnson, Brayley Morris. It's a junior heavy squad at Homestead, and it's going to be interesting because remember, Homestead doesn't play in the conference, neither does Carroll, so they always play a schedule that's unique to a lot of schools in the area. They got a matchup coming up on Saturday, so they'll have some. So Homestead will have some time between now and Saturday. They'll be hosting Mount Vernon in down a school from Fortville, Indiana, and then on Thursday, a week from Thursday, shortly after Labor Day, they'll be traveling to take on the Warsaw Tigers. They're off to a pretty decent start in soccer, as far as I know. And then Carroll is 2-0-1. They had a scoreless draw with Mishawaka Marion, shut out Leo 8-0, and then defeated Chesterton over the weekend at Newton Park 7-3. They got Bishop Dwayner coming up on Monday, which is tomorrow. Bishop Dwayner, they have been the top team in the SAC, at least for the past several years. But last year, they finally got the conference back from Northrop after Northrop had their string of success recently in girls soccer. Dwayner got the conference back in Dwayner's favor, and we expect Bishop Dwayner to be one of the top teams once again this year in girls soccer. That'll be a team to watch Tuesday. So that's actually next Tuesday, Monday and Tuesday, not this week. I apologize. So next Monday is at Dwayner. Next Tuesday, September 2nd, they're hosting Snyder. So two Summit City area schools coming up for the Carroll Chargers. Other schools I want to mention real quick in girls soccer, Jay County in the ACAC. They've always been right up there in the swing of things. Either been Jay County or Heritage in recent memory. We kind of expect the same again between those two schools. Although worthy enough for the ACAC is that Southern Wells now has a girls soccer team. So kind of nice for the conference for a school that in girls soccer, they only had 4 teams in the past, which is Heritage, Jay County, Woodland, and Adams. Now you bring in Southern Wells. That's 5 teams in this girls soccer conference. So good to see Southern Wells getting at least a soccer team. They don't have a boys soccer team this year, but girls soccer, they're finally back at Southern Wells. Hopefully they can get a boys soccer team in the not too distant future, but we do expect Jay County and Heritage to be in the midst once again in the ACAC swing of things. And then the SAC, more of the same as we would expect. Your Bishop Dwainers, your Northrops, your Concordias. Maybe you can spice in a little bit of Snyder, maybe as a sleeper to keep an eye on in the SAC. I'm not too sure about maybe Southside. I'm not too sure. Southside's 1-1. Not too bad of a start for Southside. They did lose to East Snowball, but not a bad team per se. But generally speaking, we look at the SAC, we pretty much expect your Concordias, your Northups, and your Dwainers be in the midst for the SAC in that scheme of things. And then in the Marion area, obviously we would expect Mississauga to be in that midst for girls soccer. Oak Hill traditionally has had good girls soccer over the years, and I think that tradition continues this year. They've looked quite good so far this year for the folks down in Converse, Indiana. And so Oak Hill, I would say, definitely a team to watch. They are 3-0 to start the season, defeating Eastford, Kokomo, and Marion. They got Blackford coming up on Wednesday, Manchester on Thursday, August 28th. Manchester winless so far. Northwestern on Saturday, and then next Tuesday, September 2nd, they got Ole Miss, which is Mississauga. Not too far from now, we've seen Jay County. They're undefeated, so that'd be a premier matchup to watch in that scheme of things and sorts. And then you look at the NLC, Northridge is having a really good start to the season, as you would expect. Goshen traditionally has good girls soccer over the years at Goshen, although a slow start for Goshen, 1-3, but they've played a very difficult schedule so far, much like some of the other premier teams, a difficult schedule for Goshen, right? Northridge has usually been up there in the NLC. We expect more of the same this year, especially as the school continues to invest more in the soccer. We are expecting Northridge to be a consistent powerhouse for years to come. Warsaw had a great run last year. It looks to be more of the same this year for the Warsaw Tigers, as they're off to a 1-1 start of the season. Northwood's usually right up there. Concord's not too bad. It's a pretty balanced conference in girls soccer. And then generally speaking, Elkhart, sometimes they usually have some pretty solid teams of their own. So definitely some high quality soccer in Elkhart County. And then Elkhart Christian is having a nice year for girls soccer, for ECA. They're going to be one of the top small schools to watch in girls soccer, as well as Blackhawk Christian, as I mentioned earlier. I think Blackhawk just recently won a state championship. So this Blackhawk team has a history of success in girls soccer. So there's some really good soccer right now that if folks haven't been able to watch these kids play, please do so, because there's some really good soccer that's being played right now. And I think we're expecting more success and more high-level achievements moving forward for the girls soccer season. Then we shift over to boys soccer, right? We shift to the boys soccer, and you look at the boys soccer landscape in the NECC, we expect more of the same, with Westview being one of the top teams as we expect them to be. Lakeland looks a little better this year in the NECC. Central Noble, they finally got a win in boys soccer, something they really didn't have much of last year. Hopefully a sign of things to come for the Central Noble Cougars. West Noble, we expect them to be one of the contenders. Leo Lopez just had a hat trick recently in one of their games. I don't remember exactly who they played this past week, but let me check real quick. They beat Eastside 7-0. Eastside has a soccer team once again. They're back with boys soccer, which is good to see for Eastside. Blackhawk Christian, again, like the girls, that we expect Blackhawk to be very good once again. Carroll, just like the girls, Carroll boys look very good as well, including one name in particular that's being nominated as a finalist for Performer of the Week in Joey Casaburo, who recorded 4 goals in a 7-0 win over Mishawaka Marion. You got Manchester, traditionally a pretty solid boys soccer program down in Wabash County. He had a hat trick against North Miami in a 5-3 win. Shout out to Jason Chinchilla of Wayne. He recorded 14 saves on 15 shots on goal in a 1-1 draw with Norwell. Norwell's been heavily tested, and they've had their goalkeeper making a lot of saves as well for the Norwell Knights. I'm blanking his name off the top of my head. Give me just 1 second here. Making sure I don't mess up the name here. But it's Brennan Fryback, the sophomore goalkeeper, having a great start to the sophomore year for Norwell. We expect Leo and the NEA to be in the midst as well. Hudson Douglas had a hat trick and a 5-0 win over Northside. In the NEA, you look at Leo in that midst of the NEA. Huntington North usually hovering around the midst as well. Columbia City's had some success recently in boys soccer, and Jonas Shipman is back for his senior year at Columbia City. He had a hat trick and a 3-2 win over the Eastbrook Panthers, right? You got East Noble, who's slowly moving on their way up, just like the girls. The boys are slowly moving their way up, led by Peyton Strassel, who had 4 goals and 3 assists in the 9-0 win over Garrett. Lane Snyder had 4 goals for Lakewood Park, a nice small school program of their own against Prairie Heights. Bethany Christian, we come to know Bethany recently as one of the top small schools in all of Indiana. They returned basically the same team, aside from not having Jacoby Reinhardt, their goalkeeper, and a couple names. Still very much a typical Bethany Christian boys soccer team. Really good program. They've had a nice start to the season for Bethany. The school up in Goshen. They are 3-1 with their lone loss coming against Mishawaka Marion 4-1. They beat Lakewood Park 4-1. They beat Northwood 5-1, and then shut out Lakeland Christian Academy 7-0. And they are led in part by Leanne Espinoza Lopez, or LEL. Zane Parson, a senior forward for them. Nice start for him. They got a freshman goalkeeper by the name of Stephen Reif. Hope I pronounced his last name correctly. Freshman goalkeeper with a 1 goals against average. So this Bethany team is still pretty good. Once again, here in 2025, ACAC boys soccer kind of up in the air right now. We would think Jay County would have the edge, but it's a conference it's a little unpredictable in the ACAC. There's only a handful of teams, only 4 teams in that conference, or 3 teams, I should say. So Jay County probably still in the midst once again. You look at the NECC, I mentioned Westview, I mentioned Angola, I mentioned West Noble. Lakeland's looks better this year. I think I mentioned all the names there. SAC, Bishop Lewis won the SAC last year in boys soccer, won their first conference championship in over a decade. Bishop Lewis looking quite good once again this year. Northup, we come to expect Northup to be in the midst as well for the SAC championship, and Northup off to a nice start of their own. They are 2-1. They had a draw with Homestead, one draw there against the Homestead Spartans. Bishop Dwayner, much like the girls, the boys typically pretty solid team. Had a down year last year by their standards, but still a pretty solid team. Northside has had some decent soccer recently. Wayne looks pretty respectable this year. Southside had a nice season last year, 9-8-1 overall. They had a tough loss to Warsaw to start the season this year. Let's see here. So again, with the SAC boys, Lures, Northup, and then also like the girls, Concordia, we expect them to be in the midst once again this season. They had a tough loss to Bishop Lures at the beginning of the season. 1-0 loss to Lures. Also lost 2-0 to Blackhawk Christian. 4-0 win, however, against Northside. Let's see. Am I missing anybody else? Elkhart. Yeah, we got to mention Elkhart County now. So Northridge, I mentioned earlier with the girls soccer having a great run as well. Again, Northridge boys, much like the girls, they have a nice squad of their own. And I've been told they got a lot of freshmen and sophomores coming up. They got a deep, talented underclass right now at Northridge. They're going to be a really good team for a while. Yeah, maybe they're going to go through their lumps early because they're playing those really tough non-conference teams like Penn and Valpo, right? And they'll play Bethany later in the season. But this team's going to be really good. And maybe in 2 years, 3 years, this Northridge team could be one of the top teams in all of Northern Indiana 2 years from now. So mark my words, Northridge could be quite good a couple years from now. Concord, what a start for the Concord Minutemen. They're 2-0, shutting out Northwood 4-0, and Homestead 2-0, led by the goalkeeper, Junior Herrera, and he had 2 clean sheets. He has not given up a goal yet, so he is undefeated through 1 week, and he is perfect in terms of saves versus goals scored against. So really nice run there for Concord so far this year. Northwood, aside from a couple tough losses, looking like they're going to be a pretty respectable team in their own rights. Goshen, as we normally expect, Goshen's going to be one of the top teams in the NOC. They shut out Elkhart and then defeated a nice Westview team 4-1. Goshen, they're led by Chino Torres. You got Isabel Herrera Jr. Their goalkeeper is sophomore Brian Arista Garcia. He has not given him a goal yet for the Goshen Redhawks. Solid team, once again. And the NLC has really good soccer. Plymouth has had some good teams over the years as well. So this is going to be a really good year, once again, for boys soccer, and particularly in the Fort Wayne area and in Elkhart. So it will be fun. And Canterbury, there's going to be some storylines around with Fort Wayne Canterbury. They've had a tough start to the season. They've had a couple close losses along the way in the return of Greg Mouch, the legendary Canterbury coach, and the goalkeeper for Canterbury is Landon Mouch, 0.941 goals against average for the junior. He's one of our finalists for the ANEC Boys Soccer Performer of the Week for the Fort Wayne Canterbury Cavaliers, and they have been historically one of the top programs in all of Indiana over the past 20-some years or so. Not to the level they once were, but right now, but still a respectable program, as they lost to Elkhart Christian 2-1. They beat Wayne 2-0 and lost 4-0 to a really good Bishop Lewis team. Probably one of the top teams in all of Indiana. They got Bishop Wayner coming up on Saturday, hosting Bishop Wayner, and then they got Blackhawk on the Tuesday after Labor Day, September 2nd, against Blackhawk Christian. Lastly, I want to get to volleyball. And with volleyball, when it comes to volleyball here in the state of Indiana, it has grown spectacularly over the last decade or so. You look at the headlines going into the season with Angola and Carroll, the two teams that made it to the state finals last year. Angola in 3A, Carroll in 4A. Angola got swept by Indianapolis Roncalli. Carroll beat Yorktown, powerhouse Yorktown, in 4 sets. Angola did lose some solid players, especially with their setter Ava Harris, but Angola's kind of pretty much reloading in other areas, but they return a lot back, led by the Illinois commits Maya Harris. Monster start to the season for the Angola Hornets. She had 32 kills against Columbia City a couple weekends ago. And then just last week against East Noble, she recorded 20 service aces against the East Noble Knights in a sweep. So Angola, definitely a prohibitive favorite once again in the Northeast Corner Conference. Behind them, you got Fairfields quietly having a solid 3-0 start to the season. You got Garrett. They're off to a 4-0 start. They're kind of a younger team, but their younger kids are very talented at Garrett's, including a transfer from Lakewood Park, a senior who transferred from Lakewood Park, and Amelia Kosturki, really good right side header and safety. Not safety. Good Lord, not football. Setter for Garrett. And then you got a freshman libero in Kaylee Gar. Great start for her high school career for her. You got Rylan Floto, their setter this year. Sarah Depew, great senior year so far for her. So we expect Garrett to be in the mix. They're already 2-0 in conference play, just like Fairfield. You got Eastside, respectable start. We'll see what they can do, but at least they beat DeKalb. That's a start for Eastside. Obviously, a couple teams rebuilding, such as Fremont and Churubusco. But Angola, once again, in the midst again. Lakeland, very battle-tested start to the season. They're 4-3 to begin the season. They had a sweep against DeKalb. They swept ECA, Goshen Homeschool. They beat Jimtown in a 2-1 matchup there. Lost in 2-1 to South Bend Adams in the tournament. Lost a 5-setter to John Glenn at home. And then they lost a tough one on the road against a really good Northridge team. There's 5-1 on the season so far. Just won the West Noble Invitational on Saturday. And Northridge has had their ups and downs in recent years. They've had some good teams in the past, but have went through their ups and downs in recent years. Looking like it could be a promising 2025 season for Northridge, coming off a 19-12 season a year ago. They were 3-4 in conference play. Can they make some noise in Northern Lakes Conference? But Northridge is definitely building themselves up to be a contender in the not-too-distant future. Nice group of seniors, but also good underclassmen below them. Northridge kind of building a nice program for the Raiders up in Middlebury. Obviously, Warsaw is the favorite in the Northern Lanes Conference. They got a really good group of 7 seniors, 5-1 to begin the season, right? Including Ellie Hepler is going to Indiana University, the libero senior, the coach's daughter from Warsaw, going to IU next year. Warsaw, maybe one of the top teams in Northern Indiana for 4A, right? Northwood, kind of a younger team, kind of a transition period for Northwood, but still a respectable team despite the 5-set loss to East Noble. Northwood hasn't made a lot of excuses so far. Just having a respectable start. They beat Mishawaka Marion in 4 sets last week to get a win. So hopefully they can get things turned around there. Plymouth's usually respectable. Concord's respectable normally. Mishawaka has had some good teams in recent memory, much the same of Northwood. And you look at Mishawaka right now, off to a 5-1 start as well. Their lone loss coming against West Noble. And that's another team to watch from the NECC as they're building a really good program led by a sophomore class of Elise Mead, Ava DeLong, and Ella Limerick. You got a couple of juniors there with Izzy Beers and Darcy Ritchie for the West Noble Chargers, who could be a sleeper to make a run in the 3A state tournament if they can get past their sectional first. But West Noble's got a nice ball club of their own as well. You look at the ACAC, Adams Central lost some good players, but they've been looking pretty solid so far. They beat Busco last week in 4 sets, led by a really talented sophomore who we highlighted last season as a freshman, and that is Emma Hershey. 12 kills, 6 aces, and 20 dids against Busco in a 4-set win there. You also got South Adams. They return a lot back as well, and you look at a team like South Adams, and really good group of kids there. They're 6-0 to begin the season for the Starfires, and you're always going to have a Bollenbacher in that midst. You're always going to have a Lehman somewhere, a Beitler somewhere, and it's always these. And then Lane Troush is there, Reese Beitler, Reagan Bollenbacher, Anna Lehman, Really nice program at South Adams. Woodland with Alyssa Anderson still very much in the thick of things. Heritage coming up with sectional championship last season. I wish it was last week. Last season for Heritage, and starting off really strong once again, led by a 5-set win over Norwell, and really a strong start for Ava Johnson, the senior libero and defensive specialist for the Heritage Patriots. You got Kendall Roy at middle, Lane Bickle, their freshman libero, having a nice start for her as well. Elena Dutschall, their senior outside hitter, all-around hitter for them. You still got Maya Ehrman, their junior miss everything, so it seems, for the Heritage Patriots. You got Elizabeth Buck again as a sophomore, Grace Scheiman as a junior, Letzel Walter, senior hitter for the Patriots. Just a really nice ball club as well. ACAC volleyball has looked really good in recent years. You even look at Jay County. They have a nice team once again, led by a really talented basketball player named Hallie Schwederman. Yep, Hallie Schwederman. I want to make sure I got the right Schwederman. Thank you. We have Lainey Molenkamp. Great start to her senior year at defensive specialist. You got a really good setter in Paisley Fugit at 39 assists. Again, Jay County kind of slightly under the radar in the ACAC, but it's a really solid program that I think teams have to be careful overlooking this season. And so far with the Patriots, 1-1 to start the season, really just kind of scratching the surface of what they could do this season. The ACAC volleyball landscape looking really good. And let's not forget Southern Wells. They have had a nice start to the season, led by Abby Powell, who had a triple-double at Bishop Lures. She's one of the finalists for Performer of the Week at ANEC Sports. Abby Powell, one of the top sophomores in all of Indiana. So she is a name to really watch. If you like volleyball in Northeast Indiana, there's one name you have to keep in your eyes on. It's Southern Wells' Abby Powell, maybe the most talented offensive player in the ACAC. It's crazy to say that, but I think there is legitimate talent coming in from Panito at Southern Wells. And I want to make sure I don't forget anybody here. Northeast State, we expect Belmont to be the mix once again, led by Mary Kate Scheiman and Alyssa Gumbel, right? Scheiman, the Purdue commit. Gumbel, the Purdue Fort Wayne commits. Great start for the Belmont Braves. They played a Ohio school northeast of Cleveland in Willoughby. Make sure I forget the name. I want to forget the name here. Willoughby South, if I remember right. They beat them in 4 sets. They beat Dwayner in 4 sets. That was our first ANEC volleyball match of the week of the season. In a 4-setter, a really good 4-set matchup against Dwayner. They swept Lures. They beat Avon in 4 sets. And then lost to Yorktown in 4, which Yorktown, if your only loss so far is Yorktown, you're doing quite well so far. Big matchup coming up on Tuesday against Concordia at Concordia. It's always a highly anticipated matchup there. And Thursday, the Adams County rivalry against South Adams. Leo, a tough start for Leo, 1-4. They played some really tough competition. We expect Leo to once again be in the midst of the Northeast State, but it's been a tough start for Leo. A couple heartbreakers along the way against Homestead and Warsaw. But Leo, I think once Leo gets things rolling, I think they're going to be right in the thick of things in the Northeast State. East Snowball, they're looking very promising. I know they're 2-5, but they played a tough schedule of their own. I think the win against Northwood, I think, showcases how much potential this East Snowball team really has. And maybe they're not a conference contender yet, but they're really starting to move their way up as a volleyball program. This is a team that just won 18 games last year. And with a lot of those kids being sophomores and juniors, you got some freshmen coming up at East Snowball. It's a pretty promising time for East Snowball right now for the women's sports, so to speak. And then I want to make sure I don't forget anybody else. Norwell, once again, will be in the midst a little bit with Emma Vachon and Macy Saulframe, Vanessa Rossworm. We expect Norwell to be in the thick of things as well. Columbia City, new head coach for the Columbia City Eagles, and that is who's also the boys volleyball coach. Now he's coaching both volleyball programs, and that is Ryan Comfer. Columbia City, solid start, 3-1. It's been a scrappy group so far for the Columbia City Eagles. We have seen a lot of Bree Rumschlag, their senior middle so far for Columbia City. It's a team that hopes to break out this year and make some noise in the Northeast State. It's always a tough conference in volleyball, as we always expect them to be. And then, New Haven every once in a while can have some solid performances here and there. They kind of moved their way up a little bit last year where they won, let's see here. They had their best start in a while last year. They went 12-17 last season. They're 1-4 so far. They played some pretty tough competition, but Annika Kepke, one of the top outside hitters in the Northeast States. That's a name to watch for New Haven in that sort of thing there. And that's pretty much the Northeast State there. NECC, I've already mentioned. ACAC looks really good once again. You got the SAC, your typical contenders doing typical contender things with Bishop Dwayner, Concordia. Pretty much going to be those two teams once again. I know they're 1-3, but Dwayner has shown promise. Even in a game against LaPorte, they've lost in 5 sets to Penn, lost in 4 to Belmont and Angola. Dwayner typically has a really, really nice group of kids. They're going to miss Jillian Tipman, but I mean, you look at some other players to step up, like a Braylon Hodgman is one name for Bishop Dwayner to keep an eye on there. You got Nicolette Watercutter for Dwayner, their outside hitter. Lindsay Snyder is another one. Maya Mooney, Maddie Gephardt. So there's some kids there at Dwayner that can do some things here this season. And then you got, obviously, Lutheran, always known for their volleyball over the years. It's going to be a challenge once again, but Sydney Blackwell is having a great junior year for Concordia. I don't want to say almost single-handedly willed her way to victory, but she had a great performance against Homestead. 18 kills in that 5-set win over Homestead. They had a tough 3-set loss to Warsaw just last week. But you look at this Concordia team with Courtney Inman and Kavea Turner, Sydney Blackwell, Claire Gleave, Kiera Dahmer, etc. Like, this is a really, really solid Concordia squad that maybe could make some noise in Class 3A if they can get past Angola. And that will obviously be the challenge with Concordia is can they get past Angola? And we'll have a preview of that game later on in September. September 10th, we'll see that match against Angola at Concordia. But besides that, Snyder coming off a solid year in volleyball in 2024. Can Snyder build off of that 5-2 conference record, 18-13 in the season? Not a lot of competition in the SAC in recent years. But Snyder, maybe a team that could still give a little bit of a scare for Concordia and for Dwayner this year. Snyder always has the athletes. It's just a matter of execution. They always have the athletes. The athletes are always there at Snyder. And then we also got to mention the independent schools, Blackhawk Christian, right? They had a down season by their standard last season. Maybe this year they can bounce back in 2025. So far, they're off to a 3-1 start. Lone loss coming to 5-setter to Garrett. Besides that, they swept Bluffton, Wayne, and Fremont, but they haven't really been tested yet. And they'll be tested coming up against Norwell tomorrow, followed by a match against Southside, Canterbury to round up August. And then right after Labor Day, Woodland, New Haven, the Fort Wayne Falcons, which is independent from the IHSCA. They're not an IHSCA member, and Huntington North. So they'll get some quality competition coming up. And then obviously we talk about volleyball, Homestead and Carroll. They're kind of the cream of the crop, if you would, for volleyball. Homestead, they graduated a lot from last year, but Homestead's got a really talented junior class. They're inexperienced, but they got a lot of good juniors that just need some experience. And, they're just a few plays away from taking that 2-2 record and go 3-1, right? And so they're right there in the thick of things. We talk about Addie Tyndall being at Homestead. She graduated. She's now at Purdue. You got Lila Tyndall entering the picture. She's only a sophomore. She's having a fantastic start to the season. She's won the finalist for Form of the Week at ANEC Sports. Got Kaya Nelson in middle. Katie Kitch at junior libero. That's a tough position to fill, coming off a great senior year from now Homestead graduate Madeline Sipe. She's moving on. She's moved on. I believe she's at Eastern Michigan now. Savvy Walker's back for a senior year at middle. You got Reagan Lyons again as a junior. And so there is some talent still at Homestead. It's a really talented group. Avery Hetty's another one who's a setter at Homestead. So there is talent there. It's just a matter of getting that experience, getting those reps in for the Homestead Spartans. And then Carroll, obviously the more experienced team. They won a state championship. They only graduated literally one player on that team. They are really, really good. And they're back bigger, better, and stronger than ever. They are 6-0 to begin the season. They dominate East Noble, DeKalb. They beat Penn in a sweep. They swept Munster. They swept Hammond Bishop Knoll. They swept Homestead. They won the Penn Invitational pretty easily, if all things considered. And it's led by a really talented senior class of Bailey Sinish, Addie Shippey, Lois Sassy, Sophia Gislin, right? Lauren Peters. And then you got a really, 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 really talented sophomore libero in Kayla Hafner at Carroll. It's a deep Carroll team. It's a state championship program. And now everybody knows Carroll is a state championship program. And that's the difference right there between winning a state championship and being good. You win that state championship, now everybody knows who you are because you win that state championship. You go down to Muncie, you beat the big bad Yorktown Tigers at Ball State. You win that state championship. Everybody that comes to Carroll's Charger Fieldhouse, they see that state championship banner. It says 2024 for a state champions. They know Carroll is a volleyball program to remember and to respect. And for Coach Pandy Sinish, a team that could once again get back to the state finals. Not easy to do so. Rarely has there been repeats in 4A in volleyball. But they can do it. They have the talent to do so. And then I want to make sure I briefly mention the Wabash schools, particularly with Southwood. They had an amazing run for the past few years. They won state relatively easily in 2023. A year ahead of schedule. Last season, great regular season, almost steamrolled through the early parts of the playoffs. They go to semi-states, pretty much a favorite to get to state. And unfortunately, things did not work out for Southwood in semi-state as they lost their only match of the season to Western Boone, a.k.a. Weibo, in 5 sets, and would go on to win a state championship. I got to feel like there is a chip on their shoulder for Southwood, who returns a lot back once again. and they are led in part by the future Kentucky Wildcats in Shania Ramey, a fantastic junior prospect for the Southwood Knights. You got a senior in Mila Dillon, Presley Croft, a junior. I mean, this is a group that's already experienced championship success, and they're not, and a lot of them are not even seniors yet. That's how good Southwood is. It's South in the TRC, it's Southwood here, and everybody else is way down here. That's not the issue for Southwood. Can they make the run again and win a state championship? That's a whole nother discussion here. And that's going to be the test for Tom Finnicle and the Southwood Knights is, can they make a deep run in the playoffs? And when you look at this team, they don't have a lot of seniors on this team. They have all the talent in the world to get back to the state finals and win the whole thing. So Southwood is a team to definitely keep an eye on in Class 2A. Really, really good program that was heartbroken last year to the hands of Weibo. So it'll be fun. It's just I can tell you, this is already going to be a great volleyball season. It was a great run last year. And now that we're expanding, we're going to have a lot of fun at ANEC Sports. We have been spoiled with really good volleyball. And I'm sure there are fans that would say the same thing. It's been a great run. Here in the Chusitso and Elkhart's. Great run for volleyball right now. All right, so that's going to do the talk around the corner. We'll talk more about football in a separate video because we're already at 44 minutes, something like that. So I want to go ahead and get turned right into our interview with the head volleyball coach of the Warsaw Tigers, 5-1 start for the Warsaw Tigers, and head coach Chandra Hepler as Warsaw looks to repeat as NLC champions and try to make a deep run in Class 4A. So that is going to do it for Talk Around the Corner. Enjoy my interview with Coach Hepler, and until next time I say, so long. Joining me is the head girls volleyball coach of the Warsaw Tigers, Chandra Hepler, as her team begins the 2025 season at 5-1. A lot of close wins so far for your team, but how are things going at the start of this brand new season?
Good. So far, so good. With every season brings a bit of anxiety because you never know what to expect. But I feel like every year we reload and we have key players that always step up and rise to the occasion and fill the roles that we need in those key pieces. And I feel like that has come together early on this year. So we've been tested and it showed a lot of grit from these girls.
And we'll talk about this team as we move along in this interview. But first, I want to take you back into your journey up to this point. You are a graduate of Warsaw High School. You kind of breed into the orange and black, if you would, of the Warsaw Tigers. So for viewers that don't recognize you, whatnot, just kind of take me through what your volleyball journey and what got you here to be the head coach at Warsaw.
Sure. So I graduated from Warsaw Community High School in 1995, which I know was not very long ago, right? And I graduated from Warsaw and then went on to play volleyball on a full ride at the University of Missouri. So in Columbia, Missouri, I lived there for 4.5 years, and then graduated and came back and lived in Warsaw. So I was a 4-sport athlete here at Warsaw. So I played volleyball, basketball, tennis, and ran track. Didn't know until my junior year of high school which sport I was going to play. And I did AAU basketball down at Indianapolis for Mount Vernon Magic. And then I played club volleyball at Munciana over in Yorktown, and decided volleyball was the route I was going to go, and never looked back from there. So graduated, came back, and I actually started coaching basketball at one of our middle schools here. And then a neighbor got me into coaching, and I've been coaching for about 25 years now.
Mm-hmm. A lot of coaching experience for you, and you obviously Warsaw's had a lot of success over the years in women's sports, basketball, obviously in particular, because all those years, 50 years ago, winning that state championship and whatnot. So it's very much reminiscent, familiar for the folks here in Indiana about Warsaw and whatnot. And volleyball is no different here. Past 5 years, you've been the head coach since 2020, an assistant position there prior to that. A lot of success for Warsaw in the Northern Lanes Conference. You've won a championship each of the last several years or so. You've won a sectional championship recently in the past few years. Can't quite get past regionals, however. And last season, a 28-7 campaign, you ran into a really good Crown Point team in a close game in regionals. So you have the experience, knowing what it takes to win at that level in Class 4A. Very difficult classification, probably the hardest state tournament in all of Indiana for volleyball. Your schedule this year is pretty much built to prepare for Class 4. You're already playing Hamilton Southeastern, playing McCutcheon. You played Leo in a 5-setter. You played Concordia. And then over the weekend, you played Providence and Carmel, which you actually won both of those matchups over the weekend. Talk about how your team's been able to be successful so far, in spite of the fact you've had to go sets or 5 sets in all but one match so far.
I think it starts out with the serving pressure that our girls apply. All of our girls play at a high club level. They're used to the higher speed and the pace of the game. But I really do think that our strength so far this season has been our serving pressure. I believe in one match we had 17 aces. We're just able to take teams out of system. They're not able to run their big middles, which has been key for us. And it's much easier for our middles if they can predict where the ball is going on the other side, and we're able to get an out of system swing coming from the opposite side. So, and our defense has just been very scrappy and gritty. Our ball control is phenomenal. So our first touch is really good. So our setters then are able to choose pretty much who it is they want to set. And we've had some younger players who are inexperienced that have already stepped up into some key roles for us under pressure already. I mean, I love that we've been in 3 5-set matches and close matches. I love that. I think that builds some tenacity, some grit for us, in the long haul for the end when it really matters, right? Last year we went 5 with Crown Point and just lost by a few points in that 5th set. So we are there. That is our goal, is to win regionals and beyond this year. And, I think each year we're getting closer and closer to that.
Yeah, and you talked about a team that's a little bit younger as well. You got some kids on this team like Madison Branham, I believe is one name. You got a couple juniors on the squad that were really good at the JV level last year, moving up this year at varsity after graduating some really good players from last season. But you have 7 seniors this season, a really good senior class, probably the biggest senior class you've had at Warsaw, if I recall, with Cecilia Goody, who's had a great week for the Warsaw Tigers. And then you had Avery Hepner at your setter. And then you have your daughter, Ellie Hepler, who's committed to IU and probably one of the best liberos in all of Indiana. I know this has been mentioned many times across the media landscape here in the state of Indiana. Just talk about this senior class in particular with your daughter and Ellie Hepler and how important this senior class has been for this program.
This senior class really, I would say, has been the heartbeat of this program now for 4 years. They are filled with servant leaders, and these girls are selfless. They really are the true definition of a great teammate, and whatever capacity, whatever role that looks like, they are ready to fill. And it's been great to have my daughter on the team as well. She is a leader that is very humble, but she is very joy-filled. And it's very fun to watch her, and then how infectious she is, especially in this class. All of them really are like that. And I think that takes a lot of great strength from these girls at this age to be able to be servant leaders. First ones to set up the net, last ones to tear down, always checking the bus, always checking the benches, making sure things are clean, holding doors for all their teammates, last ones to pick out their uniforms. I mean, they really, it's really hard at this age to find a group of girls, especially 7 of them, who have bought into that from the beginning, who really have changed the culture of this program. So whether they're on the court or off the court, their examples have mattered and have really set the tone for our program.
And that's why you've seen this team have so much success over the years. And whatnot. You mentioned scrappiness when it comes to Warsaw. If there's one word that maybe best fits the 2025 Warsaw Tigers, what would that word be, and then why?
Grit. I think grit. Early on, we've been faced with 3 5-set opponents. And purposely, I've done it the last 4 years, that our schedule is one of the toughest in the state when you look at the strength of schedule. And that is for a reason. We always start out with the best in the state so that, if you want to be the best, you've got to compete with the best, and you've got to see what that looks like. And so for our girls, it's a great test early on in the season to be able to see as kind of a temperature check and a gut check as well to see where we are. But grit, I mean, these girls really have not given up. I mean, they've been tested 3 major times in the last week and a half, and never giving up, and I think they're really building their chemistry and what it looks like to never give up and to leave it all out on the court. And I've been very proud of that. No matter if they were a senior or a freshman, that has held true.
Mm-hmm. This is Chandra Hepler of Warsaw, as her team is off to a 5-1 start as they head to a very, I would say, pretty challenging week, but more of a rewarding type of week for your team. Really a measuring stick type of week coming up. It's beginning tomorrow night at the Tiger Den. You host the Homestead Spartans tomorrow. That's going to be one of our 2 NEC volleyball matches of the week. Homestead 2-2 of the season. They've had some very difficult games as well to start the year. They went to regionals as well last year. They lost in a 5-setter to Carroll, who went on to win the state championship in Class 4A. They had another Tyndall named Addie Tyndall. She's at Purdue. There's another Tyndall Homestead this year in Lila Tyndall, having a great sophomore year. And then you got Savvy Walker, I believe, is a senior at middle for Homestead. But beyond that, they're playing a lot of juniors that maybe perhaps don't have that same level of varsity experience, but it don't matter because Homestead is always going to have the talent and the athleticism, much like your team. They're always reloading every year, it seems, in volleyball. And then coming up Wednesday, you're going to match up against the Penn Kingsmen out of Mishawaka. Last year, that was a 5-setter that you won against Penn. So you're going to have 2 very difficult matchups coming up before you get right into NLC play the following week.
Well, I'm extremely excited about this. Monday night games are always the toughest, especially when you're bringing in a team like Homestead and their caliber. And the advantage is it's home this year. So, but they very much are in kind of the same position with us. They've got inexperienced players that are taking key roles on their court. And I know Jessica Holtzclaw, their head coach, does a great job with them. Great job in the off season. A lot of these girls are high level club players as well. And so my girls, see them in clubs. Some of them play together in clubs. So I know Jessica will have them prepared. But I feel like we're pretty much in the same boat this year. We're just trying to reload some key positions. We lost our outside hitter, Maggie Holland, who was our big heavy hand. And she went on to college ball. And so trying to replace her, we're still trying to figure out those pieces. And I've got, girls that are on my court, I've got 4 that actually have key varsity experience. And so just really trying to see who's going to step up. And I'm sure Homestead feels the same way on any given night. And you just never know under pressure, what these girls are capable of. And I'm excited for the match tomorrow night. Not so much that it's a Monday match, that we have a day off before that, but I think that's what makes competitors. And I think our girls are up for the challenge.
I don't know if anybody really likes Mondays, to be quite honest with you. Not even myself. I like Mondays either. But also with Monday, you have this community food drive coming up as well. Talk about that as well, in addition to the matchup of Homestead.
I think every year we try to do a give back night. And I think sometimes we change up what it is that we're doing. Last year, we gave away to the closets that we have at our local elementaries and middle schools, the nurses' closets. We try to fill them for the kids who are in need while they're at school. Should that be a toothbrush or deodorant or some clothes in the wintertime, some winter boots. So tomorrow night, we're doing a community food drive. So bringing in canned goods, the non-perishable items that we're able to give back to our local food pantries. And our community is so great. They always dig deep into their pockets. And I just love the support that they always show for Warsaw athletics, not just volleyball, but even in times of need, I really feel like our community steps up.
Yeah, so there's a reason for fans to show up to Tiger Den tomorrow. Big match against Homestead, and then you got this food drive you're talking about coming up as well. So a big night for Warsaw in particular there, on top of the Wednesday match against Penn. Final question for me, Coach. This is a great start. You always want to get off to a good start, no matter the season and whatnot. How do you look to build off of this start as you get into September? You get into NLC play. You really try to figure out who you are as you get to the second and third string of games of the season.
I think really it's we're pretty deep on our bench level, but I really think it's about fine tuning what we're doing out there. 6 players on the court, 15 total in our program, and really in practice, just the chemistry and seeing which pieces fit together and really just fine tuning that. There are minor adjustments you always need to make after games and after wins, after losses, things that stand out, especially under pressure. What is it we really need to work on, especially when the pace is faster? Those things become a little more obvious. And so I think just breaking it down in practice, and we look at a lot of film, just watching themselves, once you get past the first 5 minutes of, oh, that's what I look like on camera, but really just breaking it down and helping them identify trends and things that they see themselves doing on the court, and maybe we could do differently and then apply it to the next round.
All right, Coach. This is a very exciting team here, and it looks like there might be something special brewing for the Warsaw Tigers here in 2025. Any final thoughts before we let you go?
No, I appreciate the support. I appreciate, the interest in Warsaw volleyball, and I'm super excited for what the season holds for our girls. It's really special for me with these 7 seniors, but to have my daughter be a part of that is really special as well. Just one last hurrah with them.
Yeah, that is indeed. All right, Coach. Thank you for taking time to talk about the Warsaw Tigers. Good luck with this week and the weeks to come.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sam. I appreciate it. Have a great night.
Thank you for watching the ANEC Sports Podcast. Please like this video and like the page ANEC Sports on YouTube. Let people know that the ANEC Sports is on YouTube. Also like our Facebook page at Around the Northeast Corner, and follow either Around the Northeast Corner and Sam Frick on Twitter/X. We're also on Instagram as well. Just look for ANEC Sports or Around the Northeast Corner, and you will find us there. You can also follow the man himself, Sam Frick, the founder and editor at Around the Northeast Corner, for other additional content. This has been an Around the Northeast Corner presentation.